Take it there, who gon' take it there? Who gon' take it there? Who gon' take it there? Electricity, 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 electricity. You know what's in the air, you know what's in the air, you know what's in the air, you know what's in the air. It's possibility, it's possibility, it's possibility, it's possibility.
Hey, so what you read on Ian Fidance lately? I feel like he's the comedian I want to like most. I like his general personality and vibe he gives off in interviews, and it seems like he has decent takes on stuff when I see him, do that or, talk about his opinions. And he just seems like fun and cool and like a dude I'd like to hang out with. So, all those things are good. I was a little put off by his vibe at first. Like, it felt like he put on a lot of separate things like stacked together in like a juxtaposition-y, intentionally way that felt forced and put on, like the nerd look with the ton of tattoos and like I don't know, just felt a little weird and forced right away, but it didn't seem to be over time. It just seemed like who he was and unique and cool. But every time, like, I've only ever seen like short bits of his actual stand-up. He seems funny in podcasts and conversations, but I had seen a bunch of short bits of his stand-up and we're thinking, okay, this guy's kind of funny, but I was thinking the other day how, like, I can't remember a single joke. There's not, like, one joke that sticks with me, like your favorite jokes from comedians do or songs from bands or whatever. And I was like, I've never watched one of his specials. I'm sure he has a newer YouTube one. And I looked up and he has one called Wild, Happy, and Free. I'm watching it now. I'm like 4 minutes, 22 seconds into it. And it's just like, I don't know, man. It feels like it's all pieces of jokes and like he's almost there. And I really want to like him more than I think he may win me over during the special. But I'm trying to figure out what's going on with him. It feels like he has all the ability and potential in the world, but like he's hitting a ceiling somewhere and I don't know where it is exactly. And I feel like maybe I'm being just judgmental and weird and it's just a taste thing and I want to like him for some reason. Something about him makes me want to like him, but then I actually don't. And he's fine. It's just not my taste. I don't know. I've had that with people before, usually like work acquaintances that you're forced to be around and you're like, I want to like this person. I do kind of like them. They have some kind of charm and charisma and I'm drawn to them and I have to be around them. But as I actually get to know them, I'm like, I don't need that in my life. This is fine. He feels like the comedian version of that, which is an odd thing. I've never seen that with anyone before in the entertainment industry.
Oh, dude, I have lots to say about Ian Fidance. I was a fan of him for a minute because he had the podcast with Ian and Jordan. I think he was one of the first people we ever brought up on this podcast because we were talking about Tony Hinchcliffe and the sort of right-wing weird pivot that comedy was doing. And that was on my mind at the time because I was listening to a lot of Bein Ian With Jordan, which is his podcast. And it's so funny that you've identified him as sort of like an interesting figure, somebody who's hard to figure out because he is. So first of all, he has a way of like being personable, right? Like he does feel like somebody that more than somebody who like tells jokes. It seems like the success of the podcast is more so due to Jordan Jensen. I can personally say that I was always a lot more entertained by Jordan Jensen, but at the same time, their dynamics together is also very funny. So I think Jordan is funnier, but Ian, they bounce off of each other in a funny way. And the funniest part of the podcast is how much shit they give each other about each other's personal lives. But that being said, it just started to be more and more bigotry. There's a lot of bigotry in there, which is weird because the way Ian comes off, he doesn't seem like that type of dude. And he's like a punk and he's associated with all that stuff. But then he'll go on these crazy anti-trans rants. And both him and Jordan Jensen have done that for years. Going on stage, talking about trans people, mocking trans people, anything from like pretty lighthearted ribbing to like some stuff that's really, really whack and fucked up to say. So I think they've alienated a lot of people that way over the years. I've covered a little bit that Jordan Jensen, I think, has corrected course a little. She still says weird things from time to time, but I don't know, something changed. I think something about the election made her feel palpably like oh, I'm contributing to this. Like, all of these comics are doing this right-wing shit, and we are actually helping Trump. And I'm a part of that because I've said a lot of the same things that people like Tony Hinchcliffe are saying. And so she still is on that, you know, it's not like she's like woke now or whatever, but a little bit more woke than she was. Whereas Ian just has continued to go off the rails. And I honestly recently unsubscribed from their Patreon. Because like I said, I enjoy their podcast a lot. I had gotten really used to consuming their content, but it was just constant, like racist, borderline Nazi conspiracy theories coming from Ian. It's like he's like watching shit on InfoWars and like just stuff like that. I don't know what he's doing, but you can just tell whatever he's looking at on his phone is giving him all these right-wing narratives. He said something about like Muslims and immigrants that are like going everywhere and raping and murdering people.
If you were also conquering massive amounts of territories, I would say and pillage, but you're not doing any of that.
Fair enough.
You're just DMing a girl.
Don't you think migrants and Muslims are the new Vikings because they're being pillaging all over the world and taking over?
And a billion. A billion of them.
Well, they're multiplying like you wouldn't believe.
I think so.
It's all cyclical. It's all part of history and time. It's just what happens.
Are they raping?
Mhm.
Where?
So they say, I don't
England,
know.
France, Germany.
Oh,
There's like
but
They,
not
they do
here.
say
massive
Europe
amount of-
is really bad right
Oh,
now.
really?
Mhm.
I don't know. Didn't you just go there? I thought you were just there.
Mm-mm. Oh no, I'm going there.
You're
October.
going there. Yeah. Have you been?
And so that was when I was like, all right, I'm not paying you guys to spread Nazi conspiracy theories. I'm certainly not paying to hear that shit. So that's when I unsubscribed. And it's a shame because I think their content is truly like no other. You know, really both of them are probably just too bigoted for consideration. Jordan is pretty racist sometimes as well. So it's like, you know, they're two comics that I tried to like for a long time. And I don't want to be only able to listen to somebody's comedy or somebody's content if they fully agree with me. And I recognize that, like, because of my perspective, somebody disagreeing with me a little bit could lead to them saying some really outlandish things, like about trans people is a good example. People all the time will say things about trans people that they don't realize how wildly offensive it is. But also, like, in the case of Ian Fidance, like, this dude is in those communities, at least to an extent. I mean, he's a bisexual dude. He, you know, has, like, punk artists and, like, hardcore artists on his podcast. And I feel like that's been less so over the years because I think they caught wind of this. And he's always going on Twitter and arguing with people. He said some, like, horribly transphobic shit on Twitter. So, honestly, it's like I probably gave both of them more of a chance than they deserve. I think Jordan's funnier than Ian. As far as Ian's comedy goes, and you said he hits a ceiling there, what I've heard them discuss on the podcast is that Ian doesn't really like the like writing jokes part of it. Ian is the kind of comic who wants to go out and like just say stuff and just kind of like, you know, he looks at it more as like a live performance or like a punk rock kind of show. You know what I mean? He just wants to feel like that. So they've talked about that on the pod that, like, you know, Ian's been doing comedy for longer than Jordan, but Jordan has way surpassed him, and Ian could probably be doing better. He's doing all right. He has people that will come out and see him. He could probably be doing better if he was focused more on writing jokes. But I think he just is stuck in this idea of like wanting to be cool and wanting to be edgy. And it's just such a shame because he views himself as a punk and he views himself as coming from that background, like ska and shit. And it's just such a like stab in the back towards anybody who comes from that culture or believes in that. You know, I think he's a poser. Like, and I say that as somebody who was a fan of his for a long time, but it's like, if you spent all that time in those communities and you have these detailed perspectives about right-wing politics, like you will espouse those ideas, but you don't have any idea about the perspectives of the people you're talking about, you know, Muslim immigrants, refugees, trans people, people who don't fit into the gender binary. It's like, you're just gonna spew shit about them without even talking to them. It's like, I would expect that from fucking Tony Hinchcliffe or somebody who has no connection to people like that. But it's like, it's just a shame, the lack of solidarity. That's what it is with Ian Fidance, is a complete and total lack of solidarity. So I, you know, as somebody who was at least aware of him for quite a while. I recently have pretty much cut him off. I mean, if it's 2025 and you're still spreading Nazi propaganda after everything that has happened, then like you're too far gone. Like what happened with Jordan is, I think, more reasonable, where it's like, oh wow, this is not counterculture anymore. Like this is the most popular entertainment and it's quite dark, and I actually don't want to participate in that. And Ian doesn't seem to have come to that conclusion. So that's my thoughts on that.
Oh, that sucks about Ian. I don't really consume a lot of his content, so I hadn't really seen that too much. A little bit, but I kind of assumed that was more just like edgelordy type stuff, trying to be shocking and salacious. Not shit he really believed, but it sounds like from what you're saying, he's got some seriously fucked up views on it. He's not just like trolling people and fucking with people. That sucks. I do remember, I think it was shortly after the inauguration, we were talking about Jordan Jensen. Like, it was like, Trump stepped in again and just immediately started stripping rights from trans people. And she did seem to be having a little bit of a come to reality, moment. Unlike Ian, I have always liked her stand-up. I haven't always agreed with her opinions for sure. But like you said, I don't need that from all my comedians. And, I from the generation I'm from, like, I grew up in the height of the edgelord era and used to love that shit for a very short time. So, I mean, I still get it, and I probably have more of a tolerance for it than I should, honestly. So I can handle a little bit sprinkled throughout stuff if it's funny. But these days, anything, especially with trans or any Nazi shit right now is so, one, punching down, and two, like, borderline dangerous with the way people listen to these comedy podcasts and these weird right-wing incel guys and people that just go to comedians for their political news and stuff like that. It's just irresponsible to make jokes like that, which is sad that we're at that point in society, because I really do believe you should be able to make a joke about anything if you do it right. But these people aren't doing it. It's like Mark Maron's on a kind of tirade right now across podcasts. He's supposed to be promoting his new special, but he seems to mostly just be bitching about these far-right comedians, and I'm totally here for it. I have my opinions about Mark Maron going both ways. Generally, I like the guy. But watching him do this is great. And I saw a clip of him on I think it was Howie Mandel's podcast the other day, and, paraphrasing, but he was specifically talking about trans jokes and just about how hacky and sick of hearing them he is. And he's like, all right, guys, come on, can we stop now? You've won. It's over. Trans people are scared. They're having their rights stripped away. Like, you don't need to keep kicking them when they're down, and it's just hacky and stupid now. I thought we'd at least start getting less of that shit, even if people's opinions haven't gotten better, but just because it is so played out. But I think we are getting a little more, like, as even people on the right, the MAGA right, start to wake up to some of Trump's bullshit, the more and more he keeps stacking on. And I can't believe it was the Epstein list finally that seems to be really cracking the dam there. It is extra disappointing with Ian too, because like you said, his involvement in the punk scene. I love the punk scene. I grew up going to punk shows and really loving that community. And at least in that time, it was very much all about unity, anti-racism, anti-homophobia, very LGBTQ plus friendly, all of that, trans friendly. Like, the scene was very, very accepting and about embracing misfits, no pun intended. But I guess there definitely were, like, the racist skinheads and hammer tights that would show up at shows, but they would, get dragged in the pit and, like, kicked out. Like, it was racism and, like, edgelordy shit was definitely a part of the scene in early punk rock. Like, oi music and hardcore, like, do have some roots with skinheads and hammer tights, shit like that. So I guess there is, a tradition of it there, but it kind of got weeded out pretty quickly, and then it evolved into, like, just being against, like, metalheads mostly in the mid 80s and up to the early 90s. Like, Fat Mike very famously talks about, seeing, anyone who showed up with long hair getting their ass kicked at a punk concert. It was never about your race or gender or anything like that. It was about what kind of other music you liked. If you were a hippie or metalhead, you were going to get your ass kicked. And then by the time I was into the punk scene, like in the mid 90s and up, all that was gone, and it was all about brotherhood and stuff like that and unity. And I'm pretty sure Ian is the same age as me. I was born in 84. I think he was 84, 85 from what I've seen before. So, like, I don't know what scene he came from where he got that far from it. But I guess, like you said, he's not getting as many of those people on his show now. So I guess the proof is there.